It's a severe disappointment. We did not expect this. When it rains, it pours. Welcome back to the homestead, yo folks. I'm Sean, the Modern Yeoman, and I've got a sad update today, an update that I'm not happy to apprise you guys of. But before we get to that sad update, a couple of silver linings here on the homestead. First, Mama Bird Watch, Carolina Wren Mama Bird Watch. It looks like the babies have hatched, or most of the babies have hatched. I think Mama Bird is actually out of the nest right now, so I can kind of go and take a look. Let's show you. You can kind of see the baby birds here. Just a lump of a couple of tiny feathers and beaks. Their eyes are still closed. Mama is out hunting for food probably right now. And they've been here, and I think they hatched maybe yesterday. So for all of those following the saga of Mama Carolina Wren, the baby birds have hatched and they are resting right now. Before we get into the bad news, perceptive viewers may have noticed this giant pile of mulch sitting here in our home acre. And to those viewers, I can assure you, no, you're not seeing things. We do have a giant mountain of mulch here. I'd say around 4 dump trucks worth of mulch, which in my estimation is roughly 60 yards of mulch. Long story short, my friends at the tree felling company that I hired to take down the elm in my front yard actually called me up and asked me if I wanted any mulch. I'd been signed up with this company called Chip Drop, but I never saw anything from them. So this was actually just a local connection through that tree company. So anyways, they called me up and asked me if I wanted some mulch. That's the exact words that the proprietor used. He's like, "Do you want some mulch?" And I said, "Sure." And needless to say, they had some mulch to give me. They had a job nearby. I think it was a total of 8 sycamore trees. So I believe this is all sycamore in here, maybe a few other little things mixed in, but this is mostly sycamore tree. They gave me all this. Now, I'm not sure exactly what I plan to do with all of it right away. This is something that'd be a good use for that tractor that I talked about in last week's episode to move this to different places. But one place I know where we're gonna put this mulch is the berry area next to the garden shed, or as Holly likes to call it, the berria. We've already got some blueberries planted there, and we're planning on adding some raspberries. I think there's some naturally occurring blackberries already in the berria. My dad's using the chainsaw. I'm gonna wait for him to stop. Okay, I think he stopped. Anyways, that's one of the first landing locations for all of this mulch. Otherwise, I think I'll probably be using this maybe in certain parts of the forest floor back there where we tend to get a lot of mud. We seem to have had good luck using mulch in muddy areas. It tends to slow down the mud. I use it in front of the barn right now where there's a muddy spot, and right now we've laid out mulch there and we haven't dealt with mud for a month or two. So we'll find some applications for it. We're not sure exactly what we're gonna do with all of this mulch right now, but over the next few seasons, we'll find places to put it. And like I said, once we get the tractor, we'll be able to pick some of this up and move it to a little bit of a more discreet location. Also, here's a fun chicken tip for you guys. For some reason, I don't know why, the chickens absolutely love it when I just throw them a small pile of hay now and then. It gives them something to sort through and it keeps their little brains occupied. Again, I'm not sure why, but it's a good way to distract the chickens when I need to get into the coop for whatever reason, whether it's to get eggs or to clean it out or something, or to add hay to their nest boxes. If I just throw this pile of hay down into the run, it keeps them occupied. Again, not sure why. All right, guys, for the sad news, I'll just get right to the point. basically about half of my garden, maybe a little more, died, perished in the recent frost events that we've experienced over the past 2 nights. Now, we knew the frost was coming, and if you remember the past episode, I think the past 2 episodes, we talked about what we were going to do to prepare for this frost, to include things like buckets, covering some of the beds with blankets. We did all of that. We covered most, if not all, of the plants here with buckets and blankets, but it didn't seem to make a difference. I think the temperature on the first night, 2 nights ago, got down to about 25 degrees. That was the really bad one. And then last night, I think it got down to, maybe it was 30 degrees, and that gave anything that may have been holding on the final kick when it was down. Again, we covered all the plants up both nights with blankets, with buckets, most cases both, but it wasn't enough to deal with that serious of a frost. And so unfortunately, a big chunk of our garden is gone now. We're disappointed, of course. We really did think that we were in the clear. We really did think that we were doing everything we were supposed to, and yet this still happened, and we are treating it like a loss. I mean, we're gonna pick up and replant most of this. It'll be money that we have to spend on new plants, on transplants, and we're gonna do that, but it's still a bummer. No, I think bummer is probably the wrong word. It's a severe disappointment. We did not expect this. When we lived in Michigan, we often waited until around Mother's Day to start planting. We thought we'd be fine down here in Tennessee, planting about a month earlier than that, but we were wrong. Most of the nights over the past 2 weeks have been lows in the 50s, with the exception of the past 2 nights where we got just this random snap of frost. That's a lesson that we learned. Next year, we're not going to start planting probably until the last week of April, if not the first week of May. Well, what survived? Well, the things that you probably expect. Cold hardy plants like these Brussels sprouts. Some surprise peppers actually held on. I'm surprised to see these ones actually holding on. And then nearly all of the potatoes are doing just fine. The sweet potatoes we covered up. They look a little brown and kind of a little burned, but overall they're still pretty perky. So I think the potatoes are in great shape. The seed potatoes underground, those are going to be fine. In fact, I think they could use the frost. That's what I've read, is that potatoes and seed potatoes go very well with frost. So we'll see what happens with them. Some of the onions, stalks, and onion shoots seem to be doing well. My toy onions that viewer so graciously gave us, they look a little sad, but I think they're pretty resilient, and I think they're going to hop back. But I'm going to keep my eyes on them. Most of the herbs seem to have done pretty well. I'm looking here at our thyme and our sage and some of our mint pots here, and they all look to be just fine. There's a little bit of damage here and there, but they don't seem too bad. And in the berry, the blueberries seem to have held on pretty well as well. I think they're going to survive too. Can't say enough good things about how well the Agrabah and these covered greens beds performed. Granted, a lot of these plants are cold hardy, but still, no frost got on the ground, even during the coldest night when it hit 25. The ground underneath these Agrabah cloths was just completely normal. So this was a great investment for us. Let's take a look inside of one of the beds just to show you how they're fine. They look exactly the same as they did before the frost, just as perky as they did, and there's still a lot of growth. So very, very happy with the greens beds and the Agrabah cloth. In the end, we're not going to let this discourage us too much. Like I said, there's some lessons that we've learned. Number 1, plant a little bit later than we did. And number 2, use the Agrabah a lot more than we have. Those are 2 great lessons to take away from this. We're not going to sit here and cry about it. We're going to pick up where we need to pick up so that we can continue growing. I think there's still plenty of time left in the season to rebound. I remember when I was a teenager, I loved to skateboard. And one of the things I learned when I was skateboarding was that if you want to do any sort of trick or make any sort of progress in skateboarding, you need to fall a lot. And there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of falling down, there's a lot of scraped knees, there's a lot of bruises in order to get to where you want to go. And I think maybe the same could be said for this endeavor, for gardening, for homesteading. You're going to have to fall a lot and be comfortable and content with getting up and trying it again. And so that's what we're going to do. We're okay with falling. We're okay with failing if it means that we're also okay with standing up and trying again. We have to adopt the same mindset here, and that's what we're doing. Worth noting that according to the professional weather prognosticators in the area, last night's frost was the last one we're supposed to experience this season. Now that may or may not be true, but one thing I do know to be true is that regardless of whether it's the last frost, we're going to bounce back from this and be growing very well into the season. Anyways, thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and as always, remember, slowly.